Hi guys, this is a quick video on the different types of white blood cells covered in histology. This has been a topic that I've wanted some clarification on, so thus made this video. In particular, for histo, we've been focused on white blood cells or leukocytes in blood, and so we had this mnemonic for white blood cells in blood and their various percentages, which is no longer medical education babies. And so the idea is that with this mnemonic, you can get the relative percentages of the different types of white blood cells in the blood. And so no corresponds to neutrophil, which we'll see is a granulocyte. That's 60%. Longer is for lymphocyte, which gives rise to our B cells, T cells, and natural killer cells, or those are types of lymphocytes. Then we have M for medical is monocyte, which we see, which we will take a look at, and that's going to give us our phagocytic cells, such as macrophages and dendritic cells, but not our neutrophils, which are phagocytic, but considered to be granulocytes because they do have granules. Then we have education for eosinophil, one of our granules, and then B for baby, or B for basophil, also a type of granulocyte. So neutrophil 60%, lymphocyte 30%, monocyte 6%, eosinophil 3%, basophil less than 1%. All right, so then what are the different types of white blood cells? We have the general name, right, is leukocyte for white blood cells. Then we have our first branch, our granulocytes, which you remember as Ben, right? Uncle Ben in the first Spider-Man movie. He looked kind of old. He was like a granny, except for he was a dude, so not Grandpa Ben, but he's really Uncle Ben. Anyways, so we have granulocytes. We have our basophils and mast cells. They do basically the same thing, which is promote inflammation. And so basophils exist in the blood, and mast cells are in the skin, lungs, intestines, nerves, connective tissue, but basophils are in the blood. Then we have our eosinophils, which are antiparasitic. And again, granulocytes release specific and non-specific granules to do their effects. And then we have neutrophils, which are a little bit strange because they do both. They do release granules, and they are basically, they are considered the rapid response bacteria. Their antibacterial enzymes are what they have in their granules, but they also are phagocytic, which means, they will go ahead and eat up the bacteria as well, so they can swallow the bacteria. All right, then we have our next branch of our leukocytes are our monocytes, and these are the traditional phagocytes, meaning they eat our antigens, our invaders. We have two main branches. We have macrophages, which are pretty much everywhere. You have alveolar macrophages in the lungs. You have macrophages in the spleen. You have histiocytes, which are macrophages in connective tissue. You have, mispronounces, Kupffer cells in the liver, osteoclasts in the bone, and microglia in the central nervous system, the brain. All right, then we have our dendrocytes, and our dendrocytes, whereas our macrophages and their types of macrophages are just going to go ahead and eat the invaders. Our dendrocytes will eat the invaders, the antigens, and then present the parts of the antigen to activate T cells. And so dendritic cells in the skin are called Langerhans cells. Dendritic cells also exist in the spleen, respiratory, lymph and organ tissue. But our dendritic cells will do antigen presenting in addition to eating, and then macrophages just eat. All right, so we have our lymphocytes next. And this is what, in the past I typically thought of as the so-called white blood cells, but leukocytes are the name for white blood cells. And we have lymphocytes, which refer to B cells, right, which are going to release antibodies as plasma cells, or you also have memory B cells. Then we have T cells, which can become helper T cells, which express CD4 on their membrane. And then we have cytotoxic T cells, CD8. And then our third type of lymphocyte is our NK natural killer cells. All right, so again, leukocytes give rise to, or of our leukocytes, we have granulocytes, BEN. We have monocytes, which like to eat things. And then we have lymphocytes, which produce antibodies, and then we'll poke the cells in the case of our cytotoxic T cells, and our natural killer cells, or poke the invaders to kill them. All right, then we have our mnemonic, no longer medical education babies, which are the white blood cell distribution in the blood. Neutrophils 60%, lymphocytes 30%, monocytes 6%, eosinophils 3%, and then basophils less than 1%. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful. It was helpful for me. So good job, guys. Adios.